Ahoy! And welcome to the Boating Hour with Captain Rick. The Boating Hour brings you the latest and greatest essential information about everything that sails, floats, or motors upon the high seas of Southern California. From landlubbers to old salts, there'll be something for everyone. So climb aboard and get ready to sail with Captain Rick.
Ahoy out there and welcome to the Boating Hour. I'm Captain Rick and I want to thank you for joining us here on AM 870. We're here every Saturday at 4 p.m. Please be sure to visit us on the web at theboatinghour.com, theboatinghour.com, and now on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble, The Boating Hour with Captain Rick. Thanks to our sponsors for our show today. For a healthy gut, the best probiotic on the market, Livia One Probiotics, natural, organic, and allergen-free, and Raycom radios, reliable two-way communications without drop zones and dead batteries throughout Southern California. And right now, as you're listening, the Torrance Armed Forces Parade is going on. The rest of today and all day tomorrow. Next week, of course, is Fleet Week. We've been promoting the featured branch, the Coast Guard, last year's featured branch, this year the Space Force, at the Torrance Armed Forces Parade, and Boating Safety Week as well. Today in studio, I've got Rudy Lopez in National Public Affairs for the Coast Guard Auxiliary. Thanks for joining us in studio.
Captain Rick, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on board.
And we've also got Captain Caitlin Robinson from the Space Force. Thanks for joining Captain Rick on the Boating Hour.
Thank you, sir.
That is so exciting. So as we're going on right now and people are listening, the Torrance Armed Forces Parade is going on. And we had your Colonel Walsh. So we had, I guess, your boss. She was on last week and you were on. That was exciting. Did you enjoy last week's show?
Oh, yeah. My boss was awesome. I'm really sad to see her leave this summer.
Oh, geez. So she's had a whole career, right? Was she originally Air Force or did she start out with Space Force?
Yeah, she was originally Air Force. She's been in over 24 years. So she started in the Air Force as a space operator, and then once they set up the Space Force, she transitioned.
I think I asked her if she could take me up in the shuttle, and you guys don't have a shuttle.
We said TBD, yeah.
All right. Well, I'm still excited. I definitely want to tour. So the presence that you guys have, tell us about being the featured branch this year with the Space Force, and tell us who the Grand Marshal is and what people, hopefully they're down there already, but if all day the rest of today, if you're listening now, and tomorrow at the exhibit area. So tell us a little bit about the Grand Marshal and some of the featured people from the Space Force.
So what's really awesome is Colonel Walsh is the senior ranking flag officer for the Space Force again this year. She participated last year for the first time, and she had a blast. She loved it. No pun intended there. And we have Lieutenant General Garant, who is the SSC commander. He's a 3-star general, and he is our Grand Marshal this year. And then we have Colonel Hopkins. He's a retired Guardian astronaut, the first Guardian in space, who is our honorary Grand Marshal.
God, that's so exciting. And, of course, there'll be VIP events later on tonight when everything's over. But if you're listening now, make sure you get down there. Now, last year, the Space Force had a wonderful presentation at the booth. The young kids were able to make little rockets, and then they were blasting them off. Are you going to have that same presentation, the same booth there this year? And then also at Fleet Week next week. Are you going to be in Fleet Week next week as well?
Absolutely. We're going to be there for both. And they're doing STEM events like straw rocket launches. There's going to be space debris at our expo area so you can touch some actual space debris. Basically, it's junk from space that's come back down, and we've just, saved it in a little area. It's got holes punched in it and everything, and you can touch it, which is pretty cool. And then we have Colonel Hopkins at our booth on Sunday from 9 to 11, and he's going to be signing autographs and taking pics with the kids. So please bring your children down and visit us.
Yeah, so all day tomorrow, Sunday. So the Space Force, and of course, last year the feature branch was the Coast Guard. I want you to know at Fleet Week next week, okay, you're competing. Space Force is competing against the returning champs, the Coast Guard Culinary. So Space Force will be competing in that. I'll be rooting, of course, for the Coast Guard because I'm loyal to the Coasties. And I've got the.
So our senior enlisted leader is a chef, trained chef. So You might have your work cut out for you.
Whoa, we're in big trouble, but that's such a fun event. It was featured on ESPN. That's so exciting. So I can actually touch a rock. Where's some of the debris from? Is it from the moon or from other planets?
No, it would just be general space debris that's in orbit.
Oh, got it. That's so exciting. God, well, it's wonderful having you on. I really appreciate it. A little disappointed that you're not running this morning in the 5K, but you're getting an honor. So tell us about that.
Yeah, the Torrance Armed Forces the Torrance Chamber decided to honor me Saturday morning for some of the work that we've done, both with the base and the chamber, standing up the Military Affairs Council and a Hidden Hero program. So they plan to recognize me Saturday morning. It's very sweet. And then immediately after that, I'm going to head over to the 5K Expo booth that Space Force is hosting and support that booth.
That's excellent. This is airing when this has already happened, but if you are listening, definitely come down there because the rest of the afternoon and clear into the early evening, and then, of course, tomorrow, Sunday, and next week, go see the Space Force booth at the Battleship Iowa, the Fleet Week down there in San Pedro. So, Captain Caitlin Robinson, it's absolutely wonderful to have you come back on the show because I'd like to know a lot more about your career, how you got in the Space Force, and what you plan to do. Can you give me a quick synopsis how you got into the military branch and what you plan to do? What's your career looking like?
Yeah, actually, I joined as an enlisted member, a dental assistant, 17 years ago, if you can believe it. And I transitioned into being an officer in 2019, public affairs, and I'll see it through probably about 23 years before all is said and done. I am in the Air Force currently because there's only Air Force public affairs members, but I do support the Space Force. So it's kind of cool to learn both branches.
That is so exciting, and I tell you, I think it's a wonderful thing. But Space Force is it's about half civilian and half enlisted, right? Am I right?
It's about half and half military and civilian, yes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, this is wonderful. And then next week, of course, Fleet Week and your booths and at the exhibit area. And it was great having you. And say hello to the Colonel. That was a wonderful show last week. I hope we inspired people to enlist and come down to both the Armed Forces Parade and Fleet Week.
Absolutely. I hope they check it out.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. Bye.
What a wonderful guest, Captain Caitlin Robinson from the Space Force. And I do hope you're already out at the Torrance Armed Forces Parade, and I hope that you're planning on Fleet Week. And, of course, this is all happening during Boater Safety Week. So Rudy, thanks for hanging on with us. I'd like to know all about what you do and about the Coast Guard being the featured branch last year and what people can expect at our exhibit areas at the parade and the Armed Forces, exhibit area, and then next week at Fleet Week at the Battleship Iowa. So I asked you about half a dozen questions at once.
See if I can remember them all. Hey, first off, thanks for having us. The Coast Guard Auxiliary has been a great thing for someone like myself to be involved with. Their primary goal, of course, is promoting boating safety and supplementing and being the task of the workforce supplement for the active duty Coast Guard. So a lot of our details that we do, we reach out to the public, and this is no different. So the exhibits that you see going on right now, yesterday, today, and again tomorrow, has our PA, our Public Affairs booth, which is where we invite all the public to come by, visit us, get the information about what they can do to be safer on the waters. Come visit our Coastie robot. We get to see some of our vessels that are out on display. You can climb aboard and see the equipment that we use to help take care of our business out there. So what got me involved, again, was the key word public affairs. This is what I did as a primary job prior to my joining the auxiliary, and it really supplemented my abilities, and I love what I'm doing.
Tell me about your prior job and how you got into the auxiliary.
Let's see, I'm retired from the police department of public safety. I did 32 years of full-time with that, then stayed on 10 more years as a reserve, also handling public affairs at that point. So 42 altogether, and when I pulled the plug and retired, I realized that I needed to do more. I needed to continue to provide service to the public, and this is where the auxiliary came up, and jumped on it, and since 2017, I've been working on it.
And now you're a staff commoner. You're a former commoner of a yacht club. Tell us about your yacht club.
Yeah, I ended up moving into Huntington Beach area, which is in Orange County, And, I saw an opportunity to be on the water. That was kind of, that's a common denominator between both the auxiliary and the yacht club. Get me on the water. So the yacht club, I had a boat, came into the harbor. I found out about the club. I joined it. And, of course, I got involved with that and worked my way up. So I ended up being one of the flag officers. And in 2021, I was the Commodore for the yacht club, Huntington Harbor Yacht Club. Oh, of course, that was the year of COVID. So there was an experimental thing. We had a lot of things that were different. But we survived, and we managed to have that. So I have that feather in my cap as well.
We're calling it COVID Commodores, and there might be a special designation for those Commodores that kept their clubs afloat. I don't know if you've listened to the show before when I've had people from yacht clubs. I congratulate them when they achieve things, when they're part of committees. But when they become Commodore, I offer my condolences. That is a tough job.
Yeah, it turns out that in order for me to be effective, it was very beneficial for me to be retired because I spent a lot of my time, daytime, nighttime, basically every day while we were in operation. COVID closed a lot of us down. We had to take our events outside, and so we created an outside environment for our members. They came back. We jumped on opportunities to put on dinners and dances and parties and boating events and stuff. And really, at that time, you called it COVID Commodores. We called it COVIDors.
COVIDors. I like
so
that.
That's what we had to ride on. So
there could be a COVIDor, trophy from the SCYA, coming. That's pretty. Yeah, that's. I've had some people from the different IOBG, the International Order of Blue Gavels, which is former Commodores from SCYA, the Southern California Yachting Association. What I've heard, and I was really surprised, a lot of clubs were very healthy because they were the only activities that people could do. Go on their boat or be on the patios if clubs had those. And a lot of clubs saw an increase in membership.
That's funny it's exactly what happened. When we were told that we could not do things indoors, we could not be in areas that were confined spaces and you didn't have the ventilation and airing things because of the epidemic, everybody went outside, and of course we had the opportunity to provide that outside atmosphere. We gave them that opportunity to be someplace where you could be safe. The aeration was there. We had all the equipment. We had everything we needed, and people started to look for things to do and found out about yacht clubs. And many clubs, much like ours, you did not need to own a boat to be a member. So we were very welcoming to a lot of the people that came in.
Yeah, that happened in my big marinas. I go to Ventura a little bit. I have so many friends. But I'm in Marina Del Rey and in Redondo Beach, so the King Harbor Yacht Club was very healthy, and they were able to do one of their charity functions. And in Marina Del Rey, the clubs thrived. It was absolutely the only thing that people could do. Also, boat brokers. I've had a few boat brokers on, and they said that they had no inventory. Everything got sold. So they couldn't get enough inventory. Now, of course, people are going up. They're buying up or getting rid of boats and getting smaller boats.
Well, it's interesting. You should bring that up, if I may. During that COVID time, the boat sales did, in fact, increase. They were so high, and they were in demand. In fact, the supply of pre-owned boats went to zero because everybody was buying them. But at the same time, and if I may, we started to see an increase in injuries and fatalities on the water because people were going out there not knowing what to do and how to handle it. So you can see where our role took a hit at that time, and then when it came off the COVID scare was subsided, we were able to proactively go out there and start teaching people so we could bring those numbers down, and we were successful in that.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit because the auxiliary is so intimately involved in all the yacht clubs and all the marinas on boater safety and helping people teaching the classes to get their boater cards. But, getting people aware because boats don't have brakes. People can buy a boat without ever being on a boat, and that did happen. So tell us about what the Coast Guard Auxiliary does to help people learn the safety rules and regulations.
Yeah, well, again, our goal is to promote the boating safety to the public. So we go out to various locations, any of the service clubs. We go out to meetings. We do seminars. We co-host boating safety classes with places like West Marine, and we just got an invitation by Bass Pro Shops to use their facilities to do exactly the same thing. And we're teaching everybody the do's and don'ts, the what ifs and what you can do. It isn't just for teaching the skipper, the captain, the owner of the boat. We also have classes that we teach the people who are passengers. They call it suddenly in command. And this has to do with what if the captain, the owner, the person that's in charge of the boat becomes incapacitated. what do the people that on the boat, what can they do? Where are the fire extinguishers? Where are the radio? So these are things that probably no one thinks about, but when you get involved in it, this is one that comes up. So we start to teach you so we can be proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah, that's how I got involved. I've told the story many times. I was at one of my yacht clubs many years ago, and a wonderful gentleman who was an ace. He was in the Flying Tigers. He re-enlisted after Pearl Harbor, and he was teaching boater safety classes. Looked younger than he was, but he showed a beautiful photo next to a single prop plane. His name was Richard Rome, and he was in the Coast Guard Auxiliary. And he got me in. He got a lot of us in, and he taught the boater safety classes at the South Coast Corinthian Yacht Club, which was founded by Will Rogers and Wiley Post at the Santa Monica Pier at the turn of the century. So that's awesome. Pretty exciting. So that's how a lot of my friends got involved. He did the boater safety classes. Of course, no computers back then, so you had to attend physically on a lot of the stuff. A lot of the stuff that the internet is not as effective as meeting people and sitting down and talking directly to people. So that's why I like the Coast Guard Auxiliary, because they're visible and they're out there at the launch ramps.
Yeah.
So if you're just joining us, you're listening to the Boating Hour. This is the Torrance Armed Forces Parade weekend. And if you're listening to us now, it's going on the rest of today, it's clear into the evening, and tomorrow, Sunday. Lots of exhibits. The Torrance Armed Forces Parade. I'm Captain Rick. I'm here every Saturday at 4 p.m. Please be sure to visit us on the web at theboatinghour.com. And thanks to our sponsors for a healthy gut, the best probiotic that exists, Livia One, natural, organic, and allergen-free, and Raycom radios, reliable two-way radios throughout Southern California. So, Rudy, your position, you're National Public Affairs now?
I certainly am. Opportunities really opened up for me. So public affairs locally, it was pretty much promoting what we were doing locally. And, of course, being in the Orange County area, this is the audience that we reached out to. But because of my past experience, they invited me to become part of the national staff, and now I'm part of training. So our goal is to teach other auxiliaries in the role of a public affairs officer and how you can best use that to reach the public and get the message out. And this is where I currently hold.
What's exciting is when I first joined, I didn't know much about the Coast Guard. And I found out a lot of people don't know much about the Coast Guard at all. A lot of people don't even know it exists. And a lot of coasties back in the day didn't know the auxiliary exists. But now there's such a relationship between the two. I know a lot of people in the auxiliary are filling in where the Coast Guard needs help, the culinary, and I know public affairs, and we're at the booths. So, tell us about that. The relationship, the symbiotic relationship with the Coast Guard and the Coast Guard Auxiliary.
Thank you. The Coast Guard is strictly a volunteer force. We are not law enforcement. We are not armed. We only provide services that does not require that trait. So we, again, the people that join, it can be anyone, any age, and even if you have disabilities or something, there's always a position in the Coast Guard Auxiliary for you. So we generally promote that to try to get more people to come out to offer the assistance and promote the boating safety in forms of education, putting out information that we hand out, radio stations such as yourself that allow us to come up and speak the word. So we're pleased with that. But, one of the things that in terms of the auxiliary itself, there's so many factions you could be involved in. If you're a computer whiz, they could use your services. If you're in the culinary, you're a chef, they could use your services. In fact, the Coast Guard Auxiliary has gone from just being strictly administrative to hands-on. And now we're seeing our chefs going on board on ships. They're going on 2 and 3 week excursions on some of the cutters that are out there, providing chef services. We're seeing radio operations where our people are manning the radios to make that happen. We are more involved with the auxiliary, with the Coast Guard active duty than we've ever been. So this is a need and a time for us to really step up, and we've done that.
Well, I know that I know some people. Actually, one of our members in my flotilla, Ron Hecker, who, by the way, was the only one in the auxiliary that ran the 5K last year.
I understand he's running again.
Yeah, he's running again if he can get down there, and he's magnificent. So he's training to be a recruiter. So he's going to come to whenever we're doing our boater safety booths. We've been at Starbucks, at West Marine, on launch ramps, at yacht clubs. He's going to come out and talk about recruiting for active duty. Where the Coast Guard's a little bit down, we hope that we can solve that problem. So Ron Hecker's there. We've got a couple culinary experts, and then we've got a watch standard. So our past division commander, Alec Milstein, who, by the way, last year when the Coast Guard was the featured branch, he sang the anthem at the concert on Friday night.
Very proud moment, right?
Yeah, and he was wonderful. I didn't know he was a singer, but he's in watch standard, and he went through a training process to be able to man the radios. Well, let's talk. Okay, this is going on right now. It's the Torrance Armed Forces Parade, the longest running, oldest, most prestigious parade in the country. 5K happened this morning. If you're listening to the show now, and lots of good stuff going on. Next week, of course, is Fleet Week, but this is going on during Boater Safety Week. So tell us about Boater Safety Week. Give us a short synopsis as the show comes to an end. Rudy, can I have you on next week to talk a little bit more about your career, how you got in, more about the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and about Boater Safety Week?
I'd be honored.
That's fantastic. So give us a quick synopsis before we sign off about what is Boater Safety Week.
Well, the National Safe Boating Week. It's across the country. They decided to recognize that because of the number of injuries and fatalities that were going across on all boaters, both inland waters and on the ocean, they wanted to commemorate a week that was dedicated solely for awareness and letting people become more concerned about people's safety, not just their own, but those passengers that are on the boats and things. And so they take that week to really showcase this whole thing out. Again, it's undone nationally, and of course, every area that has a Coast Guard auxiliary flotilla and or division or district, their goal during this week is to do as much as they can to get the message out to the public to make them safe.
That's exciting. Well, definitely, I'll have you on next week. That will be really exciting because I want to know more about Boater Safety Week, a lot more about the auxiliary, about the Coast Guard being the featured branch last year. And, of course, coming up next week is Fleet Week at the Battleship Iowa in San Pedro. That'll be pretty exciting. So the next week we'll be at the Battleship Iowa for Memorial Day weekend. So that'll be exciting. Well, that's all the time that we have for you today. I hope you enjoyed our show. All month long, we've been featuring the Torrance Armed Forces Parade. We've been promoting the Battleship Iowa in San Pedro for Fleet Week during Memorial Day weekend. And then we're going to talk more next week have Rudy back. We'll talk about Boater Safety Week. So let's not forget the Coasties, protecting our waters, America's lifesavers and guardians of the sea. Remember, if you do it right and follow the guidelines and safety precautions, there's no place like being out on the water in the fresh air and sunshine in beautiful, sunny Southern California. Here at the Boating Hour with Captain Rick, we cover everything that sails, motors, and floats from San Diego to Santa Barbara. Thanks for being with us today, and I want to thank our guests. So we had a wonderful guest, Captain Caitlin Robinson from the Air Force Public Affairs and Space Force Public Affairs. Last week, of course, we had Colonel Walsh, so an amazing guest. Here at the Boating Hour, we have some amazing guests, so I'm so very fortunate. Rudy, thanks for joining me today, and thanks for committing to come on next week.
You know what? This is a wonderful thing that you're doing with getting the message out, not just to our partaking at the safety area, but that you're reaching out to the boaters and you're keeping them all in line, in tune, keeping the interest alive, and you do a great job, so thank you.
I really try to promote the activities that go on at the yacht clubs, the charity functions that go on, and all the activities, for the youth and adults alike. So thanks to our sponsors for the show today, for a Healthy Gut, Livia One Probiotics, and Raycom Radios, reliable two-way radios throughout Southern California without drop zones, dead batteries, and all the inherent limitations of all of our other communication systems. Mobile Relay Associates, Raycom Radios. Their website, if you want to take a look at them, is mra-raycom.com. So Mobile Relay Associates, Raycom Radios, mra-raycom.com. We're going to have the founder of Raycom Radios on sometime in June. So that'll be a nice discussion. He's been doing this since he was a teenager. And this guy knows everything about radios. We've had some radio people on as well. So don't forget to visit us on the web at theboatinghour.com, theboatinghour.com. Now on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble, The Boating Hour with Captain Rick. Coming up next week, we're going to have Rudy Lopez on again from the Coast Guard Auxiliary Public Affairs. And we're going to have Captain Dave. So my good friend's going to do a little fish report. We'll be talking all about what happened at the Torrance Armed Forces Parade and about what's currently the weekend of Memorial Day weekend at the Battleship Iowa for Fleet Week. So keep your emails coming. This is Captain Rick saying ahoy and fair winds to all.